down, Jason.
I'm sorry, I'm just. My script is.
You have one of these?
Thank you.
Anyone?
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. Calling the meeting to order. Welcome to the Land Use Landmarks and Planning Committee meeting at CB11. My name is Jason Villanueva, and I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting is being called to order at 6:40 p.m. tonight. We are joined by Angel Muscane, the staff liaison to our committee. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Members should not engage in back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. The chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record when recognized. Please keep your questions and comments brief and on topic to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Roll call. We'll now take attendance by roll call.
Committee members, when I call your name, please answer present. Jessica Elliott. Nelson Arama.
Present.
Beverly Pabon.
Present.
Derek Stampone.
Present.
Vinny Torres. Jason Villanueva.
Present.
Candy Vivas Vasquez.
Present.
Nye Whitaker. Adem Brija. We have quorum.
Excellent. Adoption of the agenda. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and was posted online. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Committee members, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand to be recognized. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Adoption of the meeting minutes. The minutes from our last meeting were distributed to committee members ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes from that meeting. Committee members, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand to be recognized. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the last meeting are adopted. The minutes of tonight's meeting are being taken by Derek. Announcements. So we have some on here to read out. Does anybody else have any other announcements? Okay. Affordable Housing Fast Track. The Board of Standards and Appeals is proposing to modify its rules of practice and procedure to codify its process for implementing the recently enacted Fast Track Affordable Housing Actions Projects, as well as updating the board rules to incorporate relevant provisions of the zoning resolution as modified by the recent City of Yes for Economic Opportunity and Housing. Opportunity text amendments in the zoning resolution. BSA will hold a hybrid public meeting on the proposed rule at 10 a.m. on April 1st, 2026. The website will be a part of the minutes. The next announcement, the Department of City Planning has issued the following documents for affordable housing fast track methodology rule. That will also be a part of the minutes. The Affordable Housing Lottery has launched.
Chair, would you like me to describe what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I prepared a couple of slides on affordable housing
Sorry,
fast
so
track.
If
Yes.
we could actually push that to the planning part, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Just so that
Whatever
way-
you would like,
Yeah, just so that could get documented in the minutes,
no problem.
on the business. The Department of City Planning has issued, the Affordable Housing Lottery has launched for Fort Living, an 18-story residential building at 205 East 110th Street. The structure yields 209 residences available on New York City Housing Connect, of 53 units for residents at 40 to 130% of the area median income, ranging in eligible income from $72,000 to $160,570. So that's our announcement. So yes, I will give it to you, if you don't mind,
Yeah, absolutely.
George, on the presentations and discussions. So prior to us, we'll review the two items for just the board members. We'll just swap that out. A will become B and C, et cetera, you kind of get it. And we'll put George up and we'll do A. So I was confused because that sound basically we're gonna do the planning first in the agenda.
Okay.
That's it. Good.
Okay, all right. Okay, so as was announced, is that February 13th, DCP released these draft rules to determine the 12 community districts that are going to be fast-track community districts. And they're complicated, but in some, essentially, you sum up the total number of affordable housing units that have been developed and, well, not developed, but started in the district in the 5 years previous, which is July 2021 to June 2026. You get a number for each community district. You divide that by the total number of housing units in the district, and then you get a rate of production of affordable housing production. You rank order all the districts, and the bottom 12 become fast track, meaning if you're not producing, you're going to be fast track. And what does fast track means is essentially means that when there is a ULURP action in your district that involves housing, your council member will no longer be involved. Council will no longer have a say. The final decision will be made by the City Planning Commission, not City Council. So for those districts, they're going to be treated differently than everyone else. Yeah.
So, that means that if let's say that city council member does not agree with that project, DOB they're gonna be the ones to just fast track it and still make it happen?
Well, City
Even if
Planning
the
Commission.
community says no?
Well, the City Planning Commission will hear the community board's recommendation, but then we'll make the final decision. So the
Without council members?
council members are cut out. That was very intentional. That's what we voted for. Okay, and so the question is it really is, which districts are likely with if we were to apply those rules now, which districts are likely? All right, and so the city didn't make the map, but we made the map. And so, I'm sorry. There it is. All right, there's the map. So if we were to apply them right now, how would these rules apply? And people have been saying, well, Eastern Queens, Staten Island for sure, but there are a number of community districts in Manhattan. And so if you're on red, you are in the bottom 12 right now. And if you're on yellow, you're close. And we have to be inexact about this because the reporting period goes through June, right? It hasn't even happened yet. So there's going to be some movement as projects come online. And so you see a lot of the Manhattan core is showing up as fast track, but East Harlem is not. And that's because East Harlem has been producing affordable housing units. And so if you rank order all from lowest to highest in New York City, so normally I do this in Manhattan, but in New York City, East Harlem is in the middle. And if you look, there's like Bronx, right? When you go in the Bronx, you see all these new buildings, and a lot of those are 100% affordable. And so they are absolutely getting the most. But you're very unlikely to be fast track. Very, very unlikely. But that said, you may still wish to comment on the draft rules. And the comment period is open until April 1st. And these are a few things that I've heard, which I just throw out for your information. So the proposed method is going to count all affordable housing units exactly the same. So if you have 40% of AMI and you have a 165% of AMI, which I would not count affordable, they're counted exactly the same in the rankings. 3-bedroom units are counted the exact same as studio units. So if you have a building of 165% studios, that is the same size as a building of 40% 3-bedroom units. You're going to get a lot more units in the studios. And my concern, and this is where I'm going to testify, I'm concerned that it's going to encourage council members to push for higher AMIs and smaller units to increase their fast track rankings in the future. Right? So going forward. Is that right?
Well,
Okay.
just see, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. Listen, we got open discussion as long as we're being respectful, right? So,
So on 110th Street, this right now is on Housing Connect.
Yeah.
When we looked at the AM, have you seen that, the AMIs and the, units distribution is like, even the residents have to pay for the heat, the hot water, there's no gas, it's like, you have to look at it, it's like, this is not affordable.
Oh,
It's
all right.
not. When you look at the fact that even if you're gonna pay $1,020 of rent, but then you also have to exhaust all the Con Edison electrical bills because it's all electrical.
Oh, yeah.
It's not worth it.
Are there other like checks in place that would stop that attempt to push for the higher MIs and the bedroom size?
Yeah, well, I mean, not in the method, right? I mean, the method is the method that they're proposing. I thought that they would weight it, right? That they would reward lower AMIs and that they would reward larger units. They've decided not to do that. The data's there. They could do that, but they're not doing that, which I just find really, I think it's wrong. I think it's a literal mistake to do that. But that's what they're doing. The preserved units are completely ignored in this. So if you've seen the stuff I did in the past, you have the new units and then you have the preserved units in East Harlem, right? And the preserved units are ignored. They don't count at all. Net change is ignored. So imagine a hypothetical scenario where you have a building with affordable units in it. It gets demolished and then rebuilt. They're not counting the net, meaning the new minus the old. They're just counting the new. Right? And so if you're demolishing units to get new units and the net is zero, well, that doesn't matter. It all counts as the new stuff, which I think that's a mistake. I think that's another mistake in the method. It's all about new, and not so much about what's here now. And then it's not just East Harlem, it's everywhere, right? And anyway, okay. And then temporary shelter beds are not counted, but permanent supportive housing is counted. That is a question that, I don't know if there's a comment that's people have asked me that. And then the final one, which I just think is so odd, no changes in the rankings will be made. So even if there's an error and it says, well, this building didn't happen or this building was missed, they will not change the rankings. Once they're set, they're done. And I understand why they're doing that because people could go through these data and there will be errors because this involves matching HPD data to DOB data, and sometimes they use different BBLs and sometimes, it's complicated. We applied the method and it took us days to do it because it's complicated. And there will be errors, but what they've said is that, yes, there'll be errors, but we're going to ignore them after we've updated the system, after we've adopted the fast track communities, we will not change them. Anyway, I think that I'm going to comment on that one too, because I think that's an error. So the hearing is April 1st. It's in front of the City Planning Commission. And by law, the 12 fast track communities must be determined no later than October 1st. And if you have thoughts, either as the board or as individuals, you should comment. I know I will be. And also in this deck, there's this really excellent discussion in front of the City Planning Commission. A lot of the City Planning Commission members had very similar comments, especially on preservation. The commissioners themselves were like, what about preservation? Why are we not paying attention to that? Anyway, that's what I have on this.
Question, Joyce.
Yeah.
In regards to them picking the 12, how long do they get to stay on this list?
5 years.
5 years, so they have up to 5 years to produce the amount of
Yep.
units that they said they're gonna produce. And if they fall short of that, do they get put back on the list
Yes.
to complete?
Yes, and okay, and this is a great question because some one district, the district that is lowest, that has zero, that has produced zero affordable housing, is Midtown, 5. And they just adopted the biggest rezoning of them all, right? They did Midtown South, which was all about affordable housing. That district is all about affordable housing. And what they've said is, we want to be on the list, because if we're on the list, that means the city is going to make certain we're not on the list next time. So all of this investment of city resources is going to come in here to get affordable housing, to get them off the list. At least that's what they think. I hope they're right. I don't know.
But when you say we, the community board, the council person, like, who do you think is the we in
It
that?
can't be the residents.
Well, okay, when I was talking about that board, that was just members of that board.
Okay.
You know, that's what I had heard from people on that board, is
Which
that,
I would articulate further as the rhetoric, like, don't discount your community engagement and advocacy,
Yeah.
because the reality is projects, I see it all the time, they look beautiful, they're great, they're affordable. And then the community, there's an outroar, complete outroar, and then that job, whether that job gets the funding, gets the ULIP approval, it's not wanted, but people will make it difficult, right, outside of the world of governance, so I wouldn't discount it all the way. I hear the concern, I don't necessarily feel the sentiment, and I can't speak from housing, this is my personal perspective. I think that it's phenomenal, but that sounds like, because the communities that are invested and have, the high-class districts now have to provide some affordable housing units, where a district that's been low-class or has been disenfranchised is constantly providing affordable housing units. And that in itself has its own challenges, which again, this is my opinion, it's what we kind of see with the arguments about oversaturation of services, et cetera. So it's like, we need some balance, right? And I did notice in the DCP website that there is spaces for you, I don't know the proper term, but to complain, to share your grievance. If someone's fast tracking, or even if a project does go through fast track, you still have the opportunity to grieve against it. I don't know what that means.
you can still
because
comment.
the council member doesn't have a voice, and it gets certified by an administrative agency as opposed to the legislators of your city. So the reality is we have to be more involved, in my opinion.
If I can comment on that,
It's open discussion.
there will be fewer hearings, and so I think that elevates the role of the community board. So I agree wholeheartedly that the community board is more important in those fast track communities. Now, again, you're not going to be one, but I think that community boards that are saying, well, okay, we welcome this, I think is a reasonable position to be on. Others are saying it's not. The one other thing I would say is that it's an interesting mix. This map to me is a very interesting mix. Eastern Queens, Southern Staten Island, you have council members out there going, we don't want any affordable housing, right? I mean, and they put the kibosh on a lot of projects out there. But I do a lot of work in 6 and 5 and 7, and they're like, no, we need affordable housing, and they try to do everything they can get to get affordable housing, but they're just not producing. And so the boards, anyway, I don't know about the public, but the community boards, they're all for it, and they just haven't been getting what they hope to get out of it.
In regards to the Midtown, which is on the list, I know they made some changes where they don't retrofit office buildings
Yes.
for housing. Are those would be considered new, or would they be
Yes.
under the preserve?
That's a great question.
Preservation.
So they would be new. Now, most converted office buildings produce zero affordable housing. And so they're new, but they're not going to count because they're not producing them. Now, there is a new state subsidy, and so you're starting to see some of them use it, but essentially it has the same problem with state subsidies that we have in East Harlem is that they only fund rentals. And if you have a condo unit, you're excluded from any state subsidies and you're not going to produce any affordable housing.
It's also not very easy to
And
convert.
that's more risky for
Yeah.
the.
That is true too. So like you'll see Lower Manhattan is not on this list. It's actually ranked higher than East Harlem because it has 3 projects, only 3, but one of them is producing hundreds of units because it's one of these that decided to use that subsidy program. But you're right, the economics is very difficult for those.
So would that also mean that will fall into that fast track? If someone has a private, commercial space and they want to tear it down, create new affordable housing,
Mhm.
mixed use housing.
Yeah.
They will still have to go through, it could get fast track.
Yep.
But if they do it here in this district, they have to go to the city council?
Yes, that is right.
Okay.
Because we're not on the list.
Yes, because you're not on the list. That is correct. Yes, yeah. There would be some cases where it wouldn't if it is not a big upzoning, if it's one of the little upzonings, what they call EULERP, EULERP, whatever, expedited EULERP, whatever. So in some cases, in that case, if it's an expedited EULERP, meaning it's a small upzoning, then it wouldn't have to go to council and in your district.
This is fun.
Well, I mean, we changed the rules in the charter, right? And so, we gotta get used to new rules.
Collect $200.
Yeah. Sorry.
I think this is perfect information, George, and I
Okay,
really
good.
appreciate it. And you have the deck, so, Derek can definitely pull from there so that way we can ensure that the commentary from the commissioners is up. Which brings us into this concept we talked about back in December, and I'm speaking to the members why. We talked, last year there was a lot of discussion, and in previous years since I've been chair, about planning. We had that EULA project come out from the MTA, having discussion about the building, and there was a lot of concerns with, remember the airways, but what I really picked up from there was the concern that was brought up by George about, and forgive if I use the wrong term, district and or urban planning, right? Where, they're building something and we're reviewing it, and then we don't know the impacts of how it could affect something else. And in fairness to the developers, it's not their problem. It's not their district, right? It's our home, it's our district, so we should be planning. We have the East Harlem neighborhood plan, which I thought was phenomenal. I don't like breaking things that are already fixed, but there was always these sentiments brought up. And I haven't heard anything from the members since we talked about it in December as a goal for this year. So I'm bringing it back to the floor to see if there is a true interest in having that discussion. And if not, then maybe to just take it off the table in general and focus and use what the resources and the tools that we have already. So floor is open for your ideas.
I would like to keep it on, basically, because we have this new fast track, well, even though we're not part of it, just to keep our ears to the ground, that we know what's going on.
Well, I'm sorry, to be specific, it would be us planning for the district. Right?
Okay.
The best example I've heard in the past, and Jessica probably can speak to it better than me, and it was from the previous Jessica Morris, and George has brought it up, which was some, and forgive the term, I don't recall it, 420, there was some plan that community boards can do.
Right.
That gets adopted and acknowledged. What was the name of it?
197A.
197.
Right, see,
Right.
it's not coming right out of my mouth because I don't hear it from my members. And I don't hear it as a concern from the district. So that's the plan I'm talking about, Beverly. If we're gonna just, you're right, we're gonna continue to follow through and focus on the administrative agencies and the process of ULUP and for land use, regardless, it's our mandate.
Right.
But the question was us as a committee trying to spearhead something that maybe isn't in, I don't want to say the word interest, but isn't required.
So, correct me on this, but I think that the 197A plan, the state of the district needs.
Mhm.
it
Covers that.
Covers the 197A, because I've used the 197A before. When you're doing, planning on development. And so when you put it in the proposal, because of course they ask about your community district and the demographics, that in itself would, the state of district need now, once you go into the community board's website, you're gonna read everything that is needed from that. The 197A plan back then was in a book and it was in the community board, but, it'll speak to what was the need that we needed and the district and, all that was in that 197A plan, plus what else we would like to see happening in our community, which we covered that with the neighborhood planning. So, I mean, I don't know if that's, I think that that's more the modern one than what was in the, late 90s to the early, 2000s.
That got the houses that was all on East.
Right, that was through,
East Hall
yeah, because I
Triangle
know that,
area, all those houses is from.
yeah, I think at that time Harry and them were, she was the chair. At the time when they started doing that 197A,
Okay.
and he was chair of community board 11.
So we're talking about community board 11 developing a plan for the neighborhood.
Correct.
Which
Mhm.
I think, probably, I think Angel might think that's one of the most important things that a community board could do, and it's like, I think the question then becomes, if we were to do that, what would then happen? Would it be, something that is taken seriously, or is it, considered an advisory? Is it something we point, developers to every time that they come in for a proposal or whatever that they're doing? I did want to bring up that there's an event that I'm actively planning next month with Angel's friend Jill at the Planners Network, which is a progressive planning organization. I like to run the gamut of politics here, but they're really trying to figure out how to strengthen ties between community-based planning and comprehensive planning, so that community-based planning informs comprehensive planning. And I think they're looking at like a date in late April, but I think before we take it off the agenda, it might be good to just like look around and hear what, planning organizations might think about community boards that put forward these kinds of plans, and what are the challenges once you put in all that effort, like what do we expect to get out of it, and then is it worth that investment on our end? Sorry to put words in your mouth, Angel.
I like that, actually. Basically, we're planning the plan, which is kind of what when it was funny, when I wrote the agenda out to Angel, and I wrote planning and I wrote initiate, and he's like, what's that? And I was like, exactly, like, I don't know, because we haven't had the discussion. I bring up the points, but we're not coming up with those types of ideas, which Jessica just laid out. Thank you, Jessica. I would love for you to get us the information to that event.
Yeah.
I'll get you guys the information to the DCP event, but basically that's what I'm at, right? We're still in this initiation stage of planning, right? And if I follow my world of project management, the next step would be planning the planning, right? But we've been having this discussion since November, so that's where I'm kind of trying to push the gears. It was pushed previously, again, in my opinion, from a designer's perspective, from the world of architecture, but I do agree with the concept of urban advocacy, right? If, all of a sudden they want to start building buildings that lean like the Tower of Pizza, you might have an opinion about that. I don't know. I'm not a designer, I'm a builder. I build what people tell me to do, even if I don't like it.
Right.
So unfortunately, there's a lot of things I build that I do not like, right? So that's, I'm gonna leave that to us, digest it over the course of the next 30 days and, bring some ideas to the table that are effective and efficient for us to work on, and that'll keep the reason for that on play. I don't want it to be like, well, you see, we have fruit from everything we've done. Land use, we got the pre-looks out of the developers. With preservation, we got an entire education. I don't know about you guys, I had an entire education, so I'm pretty certain some of us did. And that's just the focus is I would like that before I term out, that we also have a process for planning. Beverly?
Would, under the 197A include just housing or all kind of community services and businesses.
It's a comprehensive plan for the district specifically, but it'll get as deep as like a budget. So there's planning where you see the artwork of what we're showing, and then there's the numbers, right? What's practical? Can the infrastructure handle it?
Mhm.
Some of the questions we ask, which I get from a user's perspective, are foreign to the developer. And the developer's perspective on the user, which is us, the applicant, is the people that are in the district, is foreign to them. So we come up with a plan, like, and I'll tell you one of my interests as the chair and as a board member. I always have this concern, a project comes in, here's an example, and we'll leave it here so we can move on. A project comes before us, they tell us everything they're gonna give us, and we tell them hypothetically what we want, as opposed to what we know they're gonna already give us, example, given the community space use. But then the question might be, well, you know, if you're gonna come into the district, can you commit to donating, I don't know, to the park? Right, and with it not seeming like the person's being, you know, again, we gotta play with words, but as Jessica said, being politically correct in the spectrum. My answer is simple, you want me to give you a free plot of land from Uncle Sam for our tax money, you're coming in with this subsidy funding to build your building, what are you doing for the district? What are you gonna give to the kids that 50 years from now will never live in your building? And again, I don't expect to hold them to that, that's us, right? But we don't have that as a process. The word community give back sounds negative.
Benefits.
I like the word benefit, but that sounds like a tax government thing. I don't know the proper term, but I thought of it, that was my interest when I was thinking of us coming with a plan is we can come and point, like example given, we already tell them about the units, what we expect for affordability in the units. We tell them what we expect about jobs and workforce development and economic development. We don't tell them about what parks wants. We don't tell them what health and human services want. We don't. We try, but we don't have and that was my thought behind it, just to leave it there. And that's why I said maybe it's not necessarily the best process, but you guys have expressed.
But under the 197, we can.
I don't know if we need to give it necessarily a name. That was just a tool that we pointed to that operated as such as use. I would look it up.
Yeah.
You know, you can educate me. I'm not having to act like I know. I don't. I never did a 197A. Respect me. All right. So moving on along. So we took care of. So now we're gonna go to B, which we review the LLP project list, which is from the land use database. So this idea came upon from our vice chair, Derek, where it was like, you know, we voted on these projects, and I always have this thought. I get asked about projects from 3-4 years ago, and I forget. I'm human, right? I got so much data in my head. So the point is, like, somebody be like, oh, what happened with this person? There was vendor. You know, and the job is done. I wasn't aware necessarily. So I agreed with Derek and Angel that we should have a space that we discuss past projects. And more importantly, what do we want? If we want anything, like sometimes it's random, but I think we could be more collaborative in our advocacy and say, hey, we want, example given. I brought Jennifer back only from complaints, not because of anything formal or reasonable. And honestly, her answer to me was logical, sound. You may disagree with it, right? So I thought it was a waste of time, not necessarily to her, but for us, and her coming and telling us that she didn't have the funding. She doesn't have funding, that's my opinion. That may not be yours. That's why I want to create that space, because we voted on so many things last year, and like example, the Lantern project, I don't know what happened with it. I remember all the controversy, I know some of you do.
Not just because they bought the money.
So you get where I'm going? Like, we don't, as a committee, we don't talk about that.
There were a number of positions we took where we said we wanted people to come back within a certain timeline, like specifically before it gets too late in the design process, so that we can still weigh in on things. That's probably the easiest thing we can follow up on.
I agree. There you go.
But, yeah, especially the ones that we said that we were gonna give them, such as the fresh, the fresh market on the Park Avenue. And he still has a sign for rent. The truth of the matter is that and that's why I was not agreeing, but he came over to us, the owner, and he said that they were getting some money for the fresh programs because we have a desert he took advantage of because of Pathmark being closed. But the truth of the matter is that in our community, from 116th Street to 115 on Madison, we have supermarkets. So we don't have a food desert like that we don't have a supermarket on hand. But he went for that money, came before the board, but we couldn't comment on getting any apartment units at all because they're expensive, right? So we were told to just concentrate on just giving them that support for the fresh market. I was not in agreement with that.
Yeah, I remember.
Because
Some people were upset with us for having that opinion. It is a food desert, but then you have, grocery stores that are all right up next to each other
24
that
hours.
can't stock the shelves and the prices are ridiculous. And then you're trying to add another grocery store and the developers are getting FAR bonuses for putting it in. And then they can't lease it because there's too much competition and it's so concentrated. But yeah, I don't, what's the, I guess your follow-up with them on that?
I've been complaining about that since I saw them open up. And they're
I
still,
wrote down to review the resolution personally, and I love what you brought up, probably the most monumental concept for us to all think about, is go back to your last year's I don't know if anybody's been on the Airtable, but, or the land use database, apology, when you go on the website, it tells you it's awesome. If there's a challenge, anybody has a question, a concern on using it, please let me and Angel, whatever, know. We'll work with you. But I think that next meeting, you should be telling me what we should be following up. I can definitely do it, but it may not be in line with what we necessarily need to deal with. Because you guys are all leaders in the community, so you know the rhetoric or the concerns from, our constituents, which I would like to be addressed. So, all right, cool. We don't have anything specific, which I honestly already figured, but I do want to say, example, land is one of those projects that I'm gonna access for an update. HPD, granted, they're a cheat code, they come, and when I mean that, they're just gonna come and they're gonna present all their projects. And I think if there's any concerns, then we should be proactive. So then that way it gives me, Angel, the staff, everybody time to get these people, to come and to be as efficient as George is, because, we probably called on George last week, and look, he's got a presentation for us, right?
Great.
He's amazing. So, and I can say the same for some of our agencies. I see a lot of amazing work. Even if when we go to the budget request, they're gonna say it, right? DCP's like, we got office in your borough. You need us, call us, we'll be there. So, it's until they fail that I can't. If we're not making the call and we're not doing the part, I can't necessarily just concern myself with what they're hypothetically not doing. Unfortunately, I don't have that much space. I need to be practical and realistic, so. All right, that takes care of that. Anybody got any other comments on the database, on past projects?
I do.
Follow up, that's what that's the best thing we have to do to make sure that we're getting our agreements met, and whatever they said they were gonna do for us and the community, especially if they're using our tax dollars. And then the residents can benefit to live in them. So I have a problem with that.
So do we do a form letter as to the projects that, in the last 2 years, and say to them, what's the status?
Yeah.
And, we have some
It
concerns.
doesn't have to be, it's formal enough. Once we send them an email, it's just like Jennifer didn't show up because I called her and we're friends. I don't know her from a hole in the wall, respectfully.
Yeah.
She works for ECF, as administrative agency. Angel formally contacted her and she reported. We have that process, the presentation form, et cetera. I don't want to boggle down and weigh out the person providing up data as well, because they might have to come in and tell you bad news. And instead of us sitting here and telling them why you're so horrible, we should be figuring out, Jenna, and I'm gonna keep picking on her only because she made a request to us. Outside of respectfully Beverly, I haven't gotten anything from anybody, right? She asked us, what properties can I possibly swing these schools in? And self-included, I failed on that as well. But I also haven't been picked on by my members about it, so. We're in this together, if that makes sense. So I just want us to be efficient for the next quarter, because we have a new borough president, we have a new chair, and we have a new council member. So all eyes on land use.
And where?
Yeah, just when we
Wow,
do.
great, Angel.
I was just saying, when we do reach out to these groups to follow up, I think we should approach it at first non-adversarially.
Right.
Like, just, you
Yeah,
know,
we
hey,
wanna
we're just
follow up.
following up, you know, we
Right,
gave you this type of resolution, here's what it said, just wanted to check in, like, we don't need to, you know, come at them hot, or else we're
Right.
probably not gonna get any traction.
No, right,
That's
we
true.
shouldn't. I don't think no one that comes before us, we should be in a hostile
No.
way, because, you know, they're coming to us. Now, if they come arrogant and they get a
Yeah.
little,
That's a different story.
Yeah, but looking at this list, well, I mean, we're going all the way back to 2017, so.
No,
it
you
started
gotta
from
be
Last
practical.
year to the last 2 years, so 24 up to now.
I would be practical, Beverly. Just focus on your term, and then we can get into the weeds. Because a lot of in your term alone, those projects there's reasons, right? And we'll get into that. The point is for us as committee members to be following up on the requests that we made when we submitted our resolutions. Because again, I just said it, all that changed politically, plus the process of ULIP has changed. So we need to ensure our commitments are being made. And I'll leave it at that. Angel.
So thanks. So just the 3 quick things. So one, since it was referenced, the Lantern Project, the Embala Terrace project, we announced at full board that ground has been broken on that project. That's, they just started construction on that. So everything that we were told that project would contain is underway. We'll see how that resolves. In terms of following up with them, I think now the question is, what are the job opportunities, right? They're supposed to be holding a job fair, like a hiring fair, in coordination with us and the council member. I'm waiting back for dates on that. So we should focus on that until the project's up, and then we worry about lease up and the rest of it. It was really good music at that groundbreaking. You're all jealous.
we weren't invited.
It was great. The other thing I wanted to mention was on the east, 125th Street. On 125th Street, 2 things. One, she's away on religious observance, but Nye is helping me out with trying to get the folks from the National Black Theater Project in. Like, that's all up, beautiful building. To come and talk to her, like, how did the lease up go? What's up with the theater? What are the opportunities, blah, blah, blah. So that's, in process. She's very well connected with that organization, so
Great.
She'll be able to help us there. And then the other thing is on the East 125th Street Development Project, we had a meeting today in advance of them coming and presenting to this committee next month. There's movement, there's a lot of movement, significant movement on the East 125th Street Development Project, which, has ties to, it turns out, to the ECF project on 96th Street. And if all goes according to what they're looking to present, if that all actually happens, then there'll also be a tie to the Julio de Burgos Cultural Center on 106th Street. So, I'll leave it to them to flesh out all the details. Today was just a pre-meeting. Our board chair and vice chair were there, along with the chair of the housing committee, myself and Khalid, just getting the first kind of blush at what they're thinking of doing. They got some feedback, and they're eager to come and present to the committee on what they're thinking about for 125th. So in terms of follow up, we're doing some of it.
No, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Thank you, Angel.
Yeah, George is fine.
I'm so used to saying George.
He's not so bad.
I don't thank you enough, Angel. Thank you, seriously. Which that's great, because I definitely expressed my concerns about the 125th development, because I remember when Nilsa was chair and the whole concepts of the funding that was, I've heard nothing since, and I brought it to them, but for some that don't know, apparently when they rezoned the entire area, it was like, all right, we're gonna put this pot of money away. I don't know necessarily what for.
Which side, the Lexington side or?
I have no idea. That's why I didn't want to speak too much to it, but I think, those are the kinds of scenarios where, that was pre-pandemic, 2020. And here we are in 2026, and I don't see no advocacy from the board on it. Yeah, Angel.
But if I could add a couple more things. So just connecting back to your previous conversation on planning. So that development, this all predates everybody but Ken. Right, I have records from that, so from 1998, I think. And from my reading of those documents, there was those two big, this is 125 to 127, second to third, right? There was a lot, from my reading, and I could be corrected, but from my reading, it looked like the community was very interested proactively in something happening on those lots. The city had plans of its own. The community did what it could at that time to kind of, stick their, foot in the door, ensure like a community, informed planning process for the development there, resulted in a point of agreement. Now, it's been stalled by every single economic and political bump in the road since 2008 when the POA was signed. We have significant parts of it, but there's still significant parts outstanding. The reason I mention it now is just to point to the part of the community involvement in designing what they wanted that to look like and what it should include. Whether we'll get it all at the end of the day is a different matter, right? Like, we're living in the real world. Before that even, it's Harlem meets Harlem, right? Harlem, right? Yeah, Harlem meets Harlem Urban Renewal Plan, which is also community informed. Saying that just as an encouragement for any, future kind of planning conversations that this group may want to help the board initiate. It could be a couple of blocks, it could be a section of the district, it could be the whole district. I would suggest just thinking about it, throwing some ideas up on the wall, and looking at, where there might be spaces that need a redo or spaces that haven't been done yet, in terms of ideas being put on the table for development of the community in that area. And it doesn't just have to be buildings. It could be buildings, it could be parks, it could be schools, it could be, pretty things. Yeah, so just as an encouragement, wanted to share those thoughts.
Thank you, Angel. Awesome. All right. Now, do we have any other questions or comments on the topic? Excellent. Moving on to our final item, committee review preliminary budget documents and preparation of comments. And I will turn this part to our liaison, Jessica Elliott.
Thank you. All right, so I'm your liaison for district needs and budget. So as you know, we received back the mayor's preliminary budget comments on our expense and capital budget requests. This committee is a little wonky because the policy areas that the in the requests that go under specific city agencies, this committee touches, a lot of them, but I think the other committees touch them more. So I think like HPD is under housing, EDC is gonna be under economic development. So DCP is really the one I think we should look at. So I unfortunately don't have my computer in front of me, but last year we had only one request for DCP and we had a very short 2-sentence response, which was urging the DCP to provide funding for the study of vacant lots and vacant residential units in CB11. And it said, we look forward to working with DCP to understand why the request wasn't supported and cannot be accommodated by the agency. So I think something as simple as that, but just in response to the actual requests that we had and the responses that we received back. I don't know, Angel, if it's, or if somebody can share.
Yeah, I read it. So in their response, they pretty much, and you all correct me if I'm wrong, the way I read it is they put it back on us. They said, great, tell us what's vacant, right? Which HPD, I believe HPD is another agency separate from the request that we did formally to DCP, but HPD, we made the same similar request and HPD told CB11 the same thing, right? No, great. If you got zombie, whatever the words you're using, vacant lots or vacant property, great, point it out. So I get it because emotionally, and I don't know the right word, it looks like it's vacant. Like I have a building on 125th Street and all the buildings look vacant to me, but guess what? They're very active, right? Not saying that's the case throughout the district. So it's hard to respond. And and I'm gonna keep my land use hat on, but this was my issue when I was SDN chair. where the community wants to outcry and make requests, and then we go to the agency, and the agency says, no problem, tell us where the problem is. And then we're like, oh, thank you, and we move on. So when I read it, and again, this is my personal opinion, I didn't see a need to respond. I saw I would need to be activated and do work. But that's Jason, you may read it differently. If you want, I'll pull it up and we can read it out loud.
I can just read the explanation of why they do not support and cannot accommodate the request, which was the request being study land use and zoning to better match current use or future neighborhood needs. Explanation being provides funding for a study to catalog all existing vacant lots and vacant residential properties in CB11, which can be developed or reactivated as affordable housing. There exist many formerly occupied residential properties in CD11 that have been warehoused and kept off the market for many years and often decades. If rehabilitated and reactivated, these properties could again provide many hundreds of affordable units for East Harlem residents. Similarly, many vacant lots can be redeveloped for the same purpose. And their response was, agency does not support and cannot accommodate. The explanation was the Department of City Planning cannot provide, expand, or enhance community board funding or staffing, but our borough office has dedicated staff assigned to work with your board on planning matters and priorities. We can assist the board in obtaining this data from publicly available data sources. Our borough office will reach out to the board in January to help point CB11 toward its available resources. I'm not sure if we were reached out to, but at the very least, I think, it's the same.
Which is we have been, which is the conversations that they have been having and inviting us to these DCP events, which they're fresh, they're just coming out. So I moved the way the committee moves, but just like I was asked to go and testify, I don't see a need to testify because I see that there's work for us to be done to advocate. So we need to do our work, if that makes sense, with bringing in these agencies, collaborating with them, actually hard documenting if we do know about a vacant. I don't, you made it, some of you do, so let's write a list out, work with DCP. I don't see a response warranted to their response, but again, that's my thought. I'll leave it to you guys.
So let me ask you this though.
Yeah.
So, DCAS also has, buildings that is theirs, you wouldn't even know that is their property. So, they can't give us a list?
Yeah, I mean, we can
I mean,
actually
even
go
though
on it.
HPD is saying we could give you a list,
I don't
before in the
disagree.
past, HPD used to give Community Board 11 a list of all the vacant lands, vacant lots, even their buildings.
Who?
HPD.
Okay.
And, that stopped, I don't know if it was because of change in the way, the leadership is, or it's because it's just, we're not asking for it. So they're not giving it, and their administration changes, so I don't know how that stopped, but before you used to have that list.
I know it's a
And
hot
then
topic when we're talking land use, when they're looking for a EULA. We push, they request, we fall. It's as simple as I'm gonna keep it, since I've been chair. I've been chair for a while now. We push that request, HPT says, okay, I'll work with you. Melissa sat there 3-4 times in my face and said, I'll work with you. And I just hear about it. I don't, we need, and I guess if we're gonna ask the city to tell us about the public lots, I thought the concern was more of the warehousing on the private sector. So the city will not give me private information.
Right.
Respectfully. No.
No, it's not private, it was city land.
Yeah, I think that item was written more towards the concern for private, but again, I wait to the committee. I'm sorry, Derek, yeah.
I think the part about the response that's frustrating is we didn't ask them to give us money so we could do it, right? So I do think it's worth replying because is their position that undertaking such a study around agreed to private owned, like they won't do it?
Derek, so we can push, because like I said, I was chairman too. It's the item we picked. We wrote provide funding, blah, 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 blah. So they're just CYAing in their response. The real push, in my experience, is the district consultations and continuing to work with the administrative agencies throughout the calendar year. again, I'll weigh it to you all, if you wanna respond to that, you can definitely can, or clarify it as you expressed, Derek, then we're gonna have to give that language to Jessica right now and vote on it. So you tell us how.
The only thing I was gonna bring up is that I know we had the intern with CB11 last year, and they did a catalog of vacant housing.
Awesome, let's pull
But
that back up.
didn't they do some analysis of, vacant properties or?
Yeah, that wasn't the best results. I could dig it up.
Okay, so that could be like a starting point, but then, maybe, we all just go out, on our own one weekend and come back and make a list of like, okay, well, along, Third Avenue from, 103rd to 107th, there's, ground floor retail, but all of the apartments above are clearly boarded up, right? So where can we make a list together to catalog all of these things so that we can have a conversation with DCP at district budget consultations, and maybe it's like, okay, we know we may not be asking the right question here, but we know what the problem is, and we need your help in identifying the solution. If it, can materialize into some kind of other budget request, help us make that make sense so that we can submit it and move forward together. But this is like the underlying issue, and if it gets solved outside of district needs and budget, great, but how do we do that?
Yeah, I know that, Picture the Homeless,
Mm-hmm.
at least maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah.
We went around the whole community and did an exhaustive study on
Mm-hmm.
the vacant units, blocks, and I don't know if I still have a copy of that, but if I find it, but especially on Third Avenue, you see you see the retail is fine, like Chase Bank and all that, but
Checks
then
cashed.
you see, and everything is empty. On 120th, we have a building that's actually boarded up and it's actually on a slant. That if there's any construction there, forget it, so.
But some of them now are being, bought over from MTA, so a lot of them are gonna be empty now.
So, to keep this logical, on our planning initiative, right, since we're not killing the planning initiative, we'll talk about identifying vacant private properties. Right, as a committee, we'll leverage our resources with administrative, I'm sorry, who?
And HPD.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, of course, the government as well.
But what we're hearing is we don't necessarily wanna make a statement because we know that we just have work to do internally.
Agreed.
There's nothing, does everyone agree with that? We can just proceed with not responding to DCP in the statement? Or do you?
For now, so we need to do this today.
Yeah, it's due, Friday.
Yeah,
Well, is
and
there a world where
we've
you,
all been notified about it, the point is, like, I didn't call an alert, because I don't see a response, but if you,
well, is there
I'm
a
open to
world
it.
where you can say, thank you for your response?
I will do
However,
that.
our question is finding the method to identify warehoused, whatever, like almost like putting back the question. We look forward to working with, however it is, because I always feel that when you don't respond, then it just looks, it can look like it's an oversight, it's been ignored,
I
hasn't
would
been read.
think, not to debate
It's up
that,
to you.
my thought is, no, to add on, my thought is that we're gonna follow up, right?
Yeah, but
So-
they don't know that, because you're not responding to that. So if they purposely took what was said out of context, or not out of context, but based on their pigeonhole response, we know that that's not what we asked for. So at the very least, even if we don't get an answer where it says what we wanna hear, just clarifying, while we thank you and we look forward to everything you just said, we will, CB11 will undertake identifying these properties and find out which agencies can assist with, with the evaluation of these processes and how to move forward to make this affordable housing, as there's a dearth of affordable housing in CB11.
Yeah, it's like Derek said,
Don't ask me to repeat any of that.
It's
recorded.
This is running right back to them, but it's correct. what
I
you
was
said.
sound, because like I said, to me, the response that they provided was super comprehensive. It advised you that they don't provide funding, it advised you that they have a borough office, and it advised you to collaborate with them. So I don't, if we wanna just thank them and what was the terminology, advise them that we're gonna do the work? Yeah, I don't see anything, I mean, I don't see the harm on it, I don't see the point, but I don't see the harm either.
I guess my other question, I guess is now even thinking a year from now, maybe their request is not about, help us figure out this problem, like the extent of this problem, it's what specifically can be done.
Right.
So if we say, these 3 blocks along Third Avenue have ground level retail and bricked up windows.
Yeah.
Are there specific HPD programs, or can there be, that would specifically address that concern?
For private
buildings that are whatever, so far gone, they're in distress, and because I think that could be more productive, because it seems like they're not interested in doing the count. They basically ignored our request. I don't think our request is unclear that we wanted them to do the work.
Yeah, there's this,
Right.
it's just double talk answer.
Yeah.
So Jessica, in terms of, so let's say I live near 106. So as I leave this meeting now, I go and let's say I get addresses. Does this committee then want to address something and then I can send you specific addresses if you, or like you were saying, if you want to include, or is it just enough to say something like, CB11 has identified a corridor from 106th Street and 3rd Avenue to 105th and 104th Street, which has many, units that are boarded up, but has retail, and then saying what you're saying, or do you think we should need to be specific?
I think that catalog, first of all, I don't know if that we'll be able to come up with like a exhaustive list in the next 48 hours,
That's what I'm saying.
but I do think that like if we have the district budget consultations in the summer, then we can come prepared with that list, send it to them beforehand, ask them to look into it, have conversations about specific properties and specifically like how, we as a community board can advocate with them or any other city agencies to generate action from private developers.
Okay, so you don't need any addresses or anything right now?
I don't think
Whatever
right now.
It could be just general.
No, I think what we need right now is a 2-sentence updated response to include with the rest of the board's responses, so, if it's, around, we look forward to working with you, we'll get to work on cataloging this, they offered, assistance in obtaining data from publicly available sources, I imagine we can accept that assistance. Anything else we would wanna say to them?
And we tie it to Mom Donnie's push for more housing development, which is the point of the ask in the first place. We're trying to find places where housing can be, either developed from scratch or, reactivated, right? So if you're gonna make the declaration that this is a priority for you as an administration, and we're saying this is what we want to do, then, I would just reemphasize that. And on the consultation part, yes, 100%. Before that, their answer was January, which leads me to believe they wrote it before the turn of the new year. So that's overdue. So we can ask DCP for that right now. And I think we should. Even before you start walking around to assemble a list. If they have that information, in their databases or whatever, or if they don't have it 100%, but they have it 80%, that's better than what we have right now. And we can start from there, that's what I suggest.
And we can also look
Let's
at,
definitely make that request. So does CB11 have a liaison like we do with HPD or?
Or schools there.
Okay. True, okay, got it. So we could request them to come to them. I'm not gonna ask them to come next month, but I think that we should think about it. We'll work on it. Yes.
I can I'll read something that I wrote based on what we've said.
Great,
and we
thank
can
you.
edit. All right.
Really appreciate that.
Okay, we look forward to working with DCP on cataloging distressed privately owned properties that are underutilized, ground floor retail and vacant apartments.
Can you write that up here,
Sure.
underutilized? There's a lot of this subject here. I don't, that's my point. I don't wanna be too.
Hold on.
I approached, building owner as a store.
Okay, and then by identifying these properties and connecting private owners with existing or new programs which can reactivate the residential units to increase the number of affordable housing units in the city.
In alignment with Mamdani's.
Do you want to put his name?
Yes.
Sure, do it.
Yes.
And
Affordable housing.
you're funny looking.
Hey.
That's my contribution.
A lot of contributions.
Are you writing that in the document, or are you?
I'm just writing it out now.
Oh,
and
okay.
then
Do you mind just emailing it to me?
Yeah, yeah, I
I'll
can.
add it to the document. I didn't realize I was gonna be writing.
Sounds good to me.
Or you can just copy and paste it directly into the document, and then
It's fine now, if you can, otherwise I know exactly where it is. I
I'll
can
find
find
it.
it.
I've got the,
All right, and then the last piece would be, to this concept, would be testimony. Do any of you wanna go testify about this?
What day?
I keep looking at you, Beverly, because you're the biggest advocate for vacant zombie buildings without telling me which building is vacant, so.
Actually, I have some resources to find out these buildings because like, Nilsa said, Picture Homeless did a whole lot throughout the whole
Yes.
community. Stringer, back in 2016, did vacant lots also. And Mark Levine just did some, recently, maybe 2 years ago, regarding, city-owned buildings that was, not being used, that could be used for housing. So,
We took pictures.
yeah,
and we
so
sent it to the city.
we can do that. My thing for me, I may not be, because my son.
Actually, I was teasing, to be honest with you.
No, but I've been looking at the dates for a
I
while.
don't see a liable, let me rephrase that. Again, as your chair, I don't see a reason to go testify, but I'm providing the opportunity to this committee for me to anoint you to our chair and tell him, yep, this individual will go testify on behalf of the board, and you have to provide your testimony in writing to the SDN chair and the board chair prior to you going to
Okay.
testify on behalf of the board. The testimony can be done virtual, it can be done written, just putting it out there, providing the opportunity to the membership. I was asked to do it, I said no for the reasons I just gave you, so. All right, moving right along, great. That was very enthusiastic. All right, any new business? I'm sorry, old business. New business.
Except we're going to check in on these,
That's a part of the agenda, yeah. Old business would be something I may have forgotten. New business. Going once, going twice. Sold to Mr. Muscane for roll call.
Jessica Elliott, Nelson Rama,
present.
Beverly Pabon,
Present.
Derek Stanton,
Present.
Benny Torres, Jason Villanueva,
Present.
Candy Vivas Vasquez,
present.
Nye Whitaker, Devin Brija. You have quorum.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned at 7:48 PM. Thank you for your time, committee.